everyone. My name is Kaliff Brown, and this is Barbara Acosta, and this is the second interview in our artist overview for Minorcan History Month. Barbara, how are we today?
I am doing well, thank you, Kaliff, and I'm so appreciative of this opportunity to be interviewed by you on behalf of the Minorcan artist.
Well, thank you very much, and we're happy to have your art on display currently in the Dunham map room on the first floor of our facility. Your artwork is absolutely stunning, and once again, this is our second interview. We interviewed Byron Capot, a black and white and infrared artist, and we are going to currently interview you. Without any further delay, let's go ahead and get started. The first question today is, what's your background and what inspires you as an artist?
To begin with, I was born in Saint Augustine at the East Coast Hospital, and I attended school briefly until I was 7 years old on Orange Street. And from there, my family, for employment reasons, moved to Jacksonville, where I remained until I graduated and married. I didn't have opportunity to go to college, but my drive and desire to paint since I was 12 years old was something that just led me into being a self-taught artist. Through trial and error, I learned a lot. I studied on my own, watched things on tutorials online and read a lot of books, and just through all of that and practice, I have learned what I've learned. And I'm just so appreciative that I have been able to have this gift. And I do feel it is a gift from God that has been given, and I appreciate it. And I try to use it to the best way that I can. Even though I left St. Augustine as a young person, I remained active over there. I had a lot of family there, and I went there during my summers to stay with my grandparents. And I spent a lot of time with my grandfather down at Summer Haven and around the area where he worked. He was a diehard Minorcan. And so I learned of the Minorcan traditions and culture mainly from him and my mother. And even though I left there, I still had those deep feelings of attachment to St. Augustine and the Minorcan culture. And I still have a deep sense of that being my home, even though I now live in Fruit Cove. I've been here for a number of years. I live on a beautiful lake called Buluthahatchee Lake, which is just teeming with wildlife. And it's such a beautiful setting that I draw inspiration constantly from living where I do. When I was young, before we moved, my family attended Grace United Methodist Church. And it was there that I first began to notice all of the ornate and just absolutely gorgeous surroundings that were there in that church, and the architecture of the buildings. And I just grew to love all the Spanish architecture that was everywhere in St. Augustine. Everywhere I looked, everything I saw just gave me inspiration, and I just had to get it out somehow. I love the architecture, the Spanish feeling of everything there. I loved seeing the horse and buggies going down the street. I loved the tourist attractions. I loved the beaches, and I spent a lot of my days at the beaches. And so those are the things that developed a love of art, I believe, within me, and a love of painting. I wanted to express it somehow. All these things just created that snapshot within my mind, all these wonderful impressions that are still with me today.
Well, what blows me away about the whole situation is the fact that you're absolutely self-taught, and I think that that is an unbelievable accomplishment, and the fact that it just is very rare to see anyone just pick it up and just find an inspiration, and it just clicks that way. And I think, of course, it's trial and error, but it's incredibly fascinating to watch the development of an artist, specifically hone in on the area and grab inspiration from that. And you can definitely tell in your art downstairs about how much you draw inspiration from Saint Augustine and the surroundings.
Yes, definitely.
Well, to get on, my second question is, who's your biggest influence as an artist?
At the age of 12, I visited my great aunt Blanche Canova Servo, who lived on Cuna Street in St. Augustine. She was a wonderful, wonderful artist and poet as well. And when I went to her house, I just was so overwhelmed by her paintings. And that was my first real exposure to paintings. And it just did something to me on the inside that I just wanted to do that. I wanted to paint like her. And so my grandmother, Catherine Canova, saw that interest in me and wanted to develop it. And she bought my very first paint set and a canvas board at the age of 12. I picked that up. I set up a still life on a table. I didn't even really know what a still life was, but I sat down and I painted my very first painting in oil and have been ever since. And it brings back a wonderful memory to me every time. I still have that painting, believe it or not, as old as it is. And it's pretty torn and tattered, but every time I look at it, it just brings back a wonderful memory to me of that time. So I would say that those two primarily were my first inspiration, my first influence. And then my other grandmother, my English grandmother, Emily Gennard, gave me a beautiful, huge family Bible that was loaded with pictures that were just beautiful, religious paintings that were just gorgeous, I thought. And they deeply touched me and influenced me in my painting. It gave me a love of portraiture and detail that I still have till this day. So those were the primary influences in my life and my painting. Then I would say the old masters and the Renaissance painters. I loved the Da Vinci paintings, the Michelangelo paintings. There was something within them that drew me, and I wanted to paint more like that. So I believe that's the reason I paint a lot like I do today. Then modern day painters that I have watched um, on my computer, such as Andrew Tischler and Kevin Hill, have increased my knowledge, have increased my desire to paint. I loved Asher Brown Durand and Greg Olson. They're also some of my favorites that I have learned some techniques from. So it's been a lot of different sources that have given me this painting that I love so much.
Well, I love that you draw inspiration from your family. I think that's really fascinating in its own right. And then your development overall as an artist, you can just see that, when you have a lot of avenues to pull from, specifically from family and inspiration from the best artists of all time, It really drives you, I'm sure, as an artist to really create your art. And I once again, I'm blown away with your overall passion. I think that's the most important thing when I hear what you're speaking about in regards to your overall influences. My third question is, can you go into detail about your styles?
Yes. Well, the description of realism in art is the accurate, detailed, and unembellished detail of nature or of contemporary life. And that exactly describes my style of painting, realism. I like to paint things as they are in real life. I like to, goal even is to create a historical record or to mimic nature exactly as it is. I try not to even add embellishments or other things into the painting. I really try to stick to things as they naturally are. Um, my favorite subjects, as you have probably seen, are animals, wildlife of every kind, nature, landscapes, oceans and rivers. All of that kind of thing is my passion.
Well, I love that too, because I mean, you highlighted before that you draw all of your inspiration, or a majority of your inspiration, from here in St. Augustine. And so I think that's impressive, because I mean, we have some of the most beautiful settings in
Or
the state of Florida, but in the country. And I think that when you pull on realism, it doesn't get much more real than pulling from your own environment. And I love that. Now I want to switch gears a little bit. I was curious, you brought up your Minorcan culture earlier in your overall background. Can we go into a little bit of detail about how Minorcan culture has impacted your artwork a little bit further?
I'd love to.
Mhm.
Um, the Minorcan culture includes a lot of tradition, Minorcan foods, for instance, crafts, art, beach activities, fishing, net making, and religious activities. In the Canova house painting, that house was built in 1840 by my great grandfather Antonio Canova. This was an important time in history for my Minorcan family, and it has always been something that we take a great deal of pride in, the fact that his homes are still there, and we love that fact. He built that house as well as one of the other houses there, the little yellow house he built for his son, and then he lived in the Murat house for a time himself. And these houses are all part of the collector's luxury inn and gardens that are on the entire block there in near downtown St. Augustine, and they are a very popular tourist attraction. And I just love the fact that those homes are still there in existence, and that my great grandfather had something to do with them. It kind of makes me feel like I'm going home when I walk the grounds there. And then the other painting of the city gates are so much a part of St. Augustine history. And when I was a child, we would have picnics out there on a green area, real green, grassy area, and also over at the Fort Green. And we'd get out there and fly kites and do what kids do. And then the Santa Maria restaurant that I painted was just a wonderful place that a lot of Menorcans like to go to eat. And in my painting, it represents it as it was in 1983. And of course, it has been torn down since, but it's being rebuilt. And I'm looking forward to eating there. So all of these places that just were part of Minorcan cultural history. Um, and I was exposed mostly as a child to all of these places and things and activities, and they just became an integral part of all of my paintings.
Well, yeah, your your overall passion for St. Augustine is apparent, and your culture in general, and in regards to Minorcan culture. And next main question is, we're sticking on the Minorcan cultural connection, but I was curious if you could go into detail about your own cultural connection with Minorca, and give our members as well as guests that might be watching this today a little bit of detail about your own connection.
All right. I would still say it's mostly family. I have never had the opportunity to go to Minorca, but I would love to one day. I have, through my relatives, seen pictures and heard stories and just feel a deep connection there, even though I'm not actually a part of it over there, haven't been. But I would say through my grandfather, Frank Canova, uh, I have learned more and studied more about the Menorcans than through anyone else. I watched him make his nets when I was a kid. I just loved seeing him make his nets that he went fishing for mullet with or shrimp, and that's a dying art now, except for Mike Uzina, who is a cousin of mine, and he's trying to keep that talent alive and that tradition alive. He tried to teach me how to make one a few years back, and I got about 3/4 of the way finished with it, and COVID came along, so that dropped by the wayside. Maybe one day I'll finish it, but anyway, that they are known for fishing and for their clams and oysters. They go digging. Duck hunting was a passion of my grandfather's, and then cooking their foods that they caught. And they didn't go out to restaurants like we do. They caught it and they cooked it and they ate it. And it was wonderful, wonderful, delicious food. Most of it I liked. I didn't like good for stew all that much, which was one of my my granddaddy's favorite things. But he made clam chowder, shrimp perlo, lots of daddle peppers, which I never learned to really love too much. But uh, those are all things that were very Menorcan to him and to myself as I grew up. My granddaddy was a maintenance man at the city and also at the Mellon Estate out at Summer Haven. And I spent many, many hours and summers with him down at Summer Haven. And one of our favorite things to do, which a lot of Menorcans I think did, was he had a what we called a skeeter. And a lot of people don't know what that is. It's just a beach buggy that is it's stripped down or homemade. And we had more fun in that during those times than anything else I can remember. We had great big sand dunes at that time before all the hurricanes came around, and just expansive beaches. And I loved riding in that skeeter, going up and down the sand dunes, and we'd drive all the way up to Daytona in it on the beach. And things were really, really different back then. But I have a lot of precious memories from Summer Haven and the beach down there. I spent many, many days down at the beach, almost drowned down there when I was 7.
Wow.
but I still loved it anyway. My granddaddy's brothers were my great uncle Leon Canova, and also my great uncle Carl Canova were pretty renowned in St. Augustine and Mayport. Uncle Leon was a captain in Mayport. He was a captain of a boat there that took people out fishing, deep sea fishing. Um, his fishing expeditions were very, very popular, and he was well known for all of his jokes. He was a great jokester. And my uncle Carl was blinded at the age of 28 and remained blind the rest of his life, but he continued to work and do things just as though he wasn't blind, which amazed everyone. In the let's see, it's called, the article called "The Blind Boatman of St. Augustine" was in the American magazine in 1925. And it's a real nice long article and a picture of him telling about his blindness from, he lifted a very heavy anchor, and it was heavy enough for two people to lift, and he managed to lift it, but he went blind from it. So this kind of shows to me the strength and the fortitude and the resilience of the Minorcan people. And I'm very, very proud to have their blood flowing through my veins.
Well, it's apparent. I mean, it's absolutely apparent. And as an eighth generation Kentuckian, might add, I know a little bit about strange foods that others might not might not enjoy. I've been known to eat my fair share of frog legs and
Oh, I love frog legs. My
oh
daddy
yeah,
loved frogs.
yeah. I've been known to have my fair share of fiddlers, and which makes my wife from Central Ohio turn green, but we eat them anyway. You know, we eat 'em. Well, and my last question, and just hearing you talk about American culture is just it's fascinating because I can just hear the passion in your voice, and it's off topic, but I have to ask, what's your lasting impact as an artist? What do you want to leave for the art community, and how would you like to be remembered?
I would love to leave a historical record that will contribute to the knowledge of Minorcans and their way of life. I would also like to show that there is unexplored talent in the Minorcans in a variety of genre or fields that people just don't recognize so much today. And I think that the Minorcans have greatly enhanced the culture of the city, and I think they will continue to do that. And I hope more so. And I hope that I am one who can contribute to that. I would like my paintings to cause someone to see something with new eyes, if you know what I mean,
Sure.
to notice something that they haven't noticed in the hustle and bustle of daily life. So often we overlook things that are just staring us right in the face. So I feel like in a painting, if we can capture someone's attention long enough, maybe they'll see things in a different way. And I just hope that people leave with a good feeling, that they're uplifted and inspired when they see my paintings. Everyone has a gift, I believe. They just need to strive to find it,
Sure.
and to find a gift that gives us joy and happiness. And that's what painting has brought to me, is a lot of joy. And I hope that my art stirs that awakening in someone.
Uh, Miss Acosta, I know that you had mentioned prior to call you Barbara. At this point, I feel like we can be on a first name basis after this.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that, Caleb. And
Of course.
I appreciate so much this opportunity. I really do.
Well, it's an when you set up the exhibit earlier this month for Minorcan History Month, I couldn't help but see the overall passion in the room as all of the artists were setting up in our Dunham map room, and I knew that there's something that like came over me. I knew I had to highlight the artists in the room and hear their stories, because I know that our members, as well as the guests that will be visiting the map room downstairs, that has been converted into Minorcan art, our Minorcan art exhibit. I know that they would love to hear your story, and I can't, it warms my heart to hear your story and the overall connection, not only to St. Augustine, but to Minorcan culture and how you want to be remembered as an artist. And with that being said, this concludes our second interview for Minorcan, our artist overview for Minorcan History Month. Barbara Acosta, and our first realist artist that we are going to be covered in our Minorcan history. And it's an absolute honor to talk to you about your art and your overall culture and connection, Miss Acosta or Barbara.
Thank you. Thank you, Caleb. Have a great day.
Absolutely.